WuSA, wake up South Africa. You've been sleeping far too long. Wake up South Africa. Now come along and sing this song. Wake up South Africa.
First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your program. It's a great honor. You may all know that actually last year in May, I was planning to visit South Africa and I had all my flights booked and everything, but then the pandemic came. So at least now I get a little chance to visit you all within my mind for 1 hour. So today's topic is sheltering relationships, the importance of developing sheltering relationships. So this is one topic I feel actually a great urgency to talk about. And in fact, I have put together a 15-hour seminar on this very topic, which I also have put into book form as well. So today we only have 1 hour, so all I can do is, try and bring some awareness to this topic. So to begin with, I'd like to share a few little realizations, which maybe many of you have, those who've been around for more than 30 years or something, that so many people come to Krishna consciousness and they stay around for some time, but then very often they tend to fade away again and we don't see them anymore. I remember, I joined in Australia in 1985 and I spent my first 5-6 years there. And then after, 30 years or something, I came back again and I was so excited to meet all my own friends again, but I was disappointed to realize, well, where is everybody? I only met a very few people 30 years later. And I'm often making this little joke, but it's actually not a joke, it's a fact that I sometimes like to say, when you go back to the same temple after 30 years, the only personalities you have seen before are the deities. The deities are still there, but not so many other devotees often, So, and I have been thinking about this for many years, wondering, what are we doing wrong? Why is this? That so many people come, they hang around for a while, but then they fade away again. We must be doing something wrong because this tends to happen all over the world, So, and as it was mentioned in my introduction, I was for some years in this GBC Committee for Devotee Care. Actually, I have to say this introduction was a little outdated there. I'm not the vice president of DACA anymore, already 10 years or something. So yes, just to correct it a little bit. Yeah, so I was for many years part of this GBC Committee for Devotee Care. And it is interesting how this committee came about. It was initially actually a preaching committee. And then in this preaching committee, there were two sides, two moods. One mood was, oh, we need new devotees. Let's reach out. Let's bring more devotees to Krishna consciousness. But then there was the other mood. Hang on, what happened to all the old devotees? Where are they? Maybe we should first try and revive them and reanimate them. And then this preaching committee turned into a devotee care committee. I mean, this is about, when was this? This is almost 20 years ago. Oh, no, not that long, 15, 12 years ago, something like that. You know, so then there was for quite a few years no preaching committee, but just a devotee care committee. And then later on, you know, outreach program was, committee was established, outreach committee and devotee care committee. So yeah, and that's when this term devotee care actually became a very prominent topic in ISKCON. All of a sudden, everybody was talking about devotee care. But many devotees have a somewhat a little, you know, external and, if I may say so, shallow understanding of what devotee care actually means. Often people think, oh, you know, if a devotee is sick and I bring them prasadam to the hospital, oh, I'm doing devotee care today, you know. So, all right, that's also part of devotee care. But actually the foundation to devotee care means sheltering relationships, which means having a mentor, a coach, a counselor, and eventually becoming one to others. That's what, you know, we understand, or in this context, I'd like to define sheltering relationship in such a way, because often people think sheltering relationships, oh, it must be about grihastha life or something. No, wrong understanding. You know, the idea is having a mentor, taking shelter and being a mentor to others, giving shelter. So this is a highly important exchange in Krishna consciousness and spiritual practice. And interestingly, you know, it is very much connected with the topic of culture, because actually some 7 years ago, I made a humble attempt to establish an institute for spiritual culture, because for the last 22 years, I have spent every year a lot of time in Bangladesh, and this has really completely transformed my worldview and put my whole life upside down. And then I realized, you know, we actually need to train and educate our devotees systematically on this topic of culture, how actually our philosophy is meant to be lived. Because we are not quite there yet, actually, you know. We like to learn our philosophy and repeat it and learn it by heart and preach it. But now comes the next step of spiritual education, namely applying it in daily life, living it. That's a challenge. That requires quite a bit of transformation of our tastes and likes and so on, you know. So in any case, this topic of culture is very much connected. No, the topic of shelter, sorry, the topic of shelter is very much connected with the topic of culture. And in this regard, I would like to share one verse with you from Jiva Goswami, from the Madhava Mahotsava, where he says the following: though one usually ignores others in attaining one's goals, those aspiring for prema, they accept dependence on others with similar goals and tastes. Thus, cooperating with each other, they worked together, keeping in mind the goal of prema. So, what's Jiva Goswami saying here? He already distinguishes between two kinds of people in this world. You know, though one usually ignores others in attaining one's own goals, so that's the general person, the materialist, they tend to ignore each other when striving for success, you know, but those aspiring for prema, they are obviously the spiritualists, they, you know, they act very differently. They accept dependence on others who have similar goals and similar tastes, and they cooperate with each other. They don't ignore each other, you know. So interesting to understand that even at Jiva Goswami's times, there was already some clear distinction between how a materialist builds relationships and acts towards others and how a spiritualist acts and builds relationships. You know, even 500 years ago, this was quite different, you know. So now, just to become a little more clear in this, let us understand in material life and its culture, meaning a culture where sense gratification is the goal in life. So how do people relate to each other? What are the characteristics in their relationships? And I mean, usually when I give these seminars live, I involve my audience and so on, but Zoom, you know, doesn't offer so much opportunity for this, and it takes too much time. So I will simply give you the answers. So in a culture where sense gratification is the all in all, well, Jiva Goswami gives us already the first point. You know, he says their people ignore each other in attaining their goals. And actually, they do so much more than that. They don't only ignore each other, they actually push each other to the side, you know, the survival of the fittest, basically. And they even step on each other's heads and push each other down to get up there, you know. So in such relationships, there is a lot of competition there and envy. Whenever sense gratification is the all-in-all goal, there's always envy and competition coming in. They go together, you know. And yes, and therefore, you know, people compete, there's envy, and the relationships are rather superficial and external, actually, because, you know, the foundation is sense enjoyment. Okay, I give you enjoyment, I support you somehow, and you give me enjoyment and you support me. And, you know, as long as this contract of scratching each other's backs, how we say, works out, it's fine. But then when somebody else comes along who can scratch my back in a more pleasant way, then that person is my friend, so to speak, you know, and the other person, no need anymore, you know. So relationships are based on sense gratification. Let's enjoy together and let's enjoy each other. So, and there is very little respect actually there, because that's another interesting thing, that a culture of sense gratification always goes together with a culture of disrespect, because sense gratification is based on the principle that we use others for our gratification. And we can only do this if we have disrespect. If we truly respect a person, we would never ever want to use that person for our gross or subtle gratification. So in this way, you know, a culture of sense enjoyment always goes together with a culture of disrespect, you know. So in these material relationships, you know, they are characterized by disrespect. There is no service mood. The mood is enjoying each other and enjoying together, you know, and also everybody is very busy with their own schedule. You know, everybody is just running, busy, you know, and yeah, people are rather self-centered, selfish, and only look what is there for me, how is this situation, you know, helpful for my goals, you know, and my agendas. So, you know, this is basically in a nutshell how materialists relate to each other, more or less in general terms, you know. And I mean, Jiva Goswami is hinting at that by saying usually people, they ignore each other when striving to fulfill their goals, you know. So now in a culture where self-realization is the goal in life, you know, in spiritual life, in its culture, there the relationships are very different, you know, very different. And as Jiva Goswami already hints, he says they accept dependence on each other, you know, on those persons who have similar goals and tastes, and they cooperate. They don't compete and push each other out of the way, but they cooperate. And of course, this dependence, we are talking here about an internal dependence. This is not a financial dependence or something, but an internal dependence, right? Yeah, so and in such a culture, there is respect there is the mood of service there. You know, that's one of the important aspects of Vaishnava life, serving the devotees. We're always considering ourselves servant, never mind whether it's towards seniors, towards equals, towards juniors. We are always serving, even our gurus, they're serving, you know, they're serving their disciples. So we are always in that serving mood, you know, and there's humility there, you know, and it's a very natural exchange in such a culture that the more senior people, they uplift the juniors in an affectionate way, and they reach out to them to help them and guide them. And the juniors, they, you know, offer service to the seniors and they inquire from them. It's a most natural exchange in spiritual life, most natural. And this makes the relationships deep and meaningful, not superficial and external and interchangeable like in material life, but these relationships in spiritual life, they should be deep and meaningful because they're really based on assisting each other, you know, in going back home, back to Godhead. So already here, you know, when we look at these two cultures and the relationships, how they're characterized in these cultures, we can see very, very different, you know. Actually, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 269, what is day to the materialist is night to the introspective sage. You know, so the materialist, the spiritualist, they're actually living in different realities. And their worldviews and goals in life are very, very different, you know. So this day-night principle actually accompanies us through many aspects of devotional life. We can basically say, what is the highest achievement in Krishna consciousness? For materialists, it's considered to be the lowest. It's a weakness, you know, like, for example, developing the quality of tolerance. Highly important as a devotee, you know, tolerance is directly a criteria to measure a person's spiritual advancement and spiritual strength, you know. But for materialists, tolerance is considered complete weakness. You're a loser. What? You tolerate that nonsense? You don't know how to defend yourself and fight for your rights? You know, that's the mood for the materialist. But for the spiritualist, Prahlad Maharaj, Haridas Thakur, you know, tolerance is glorious, not defending and fighting for your rights, you know. So yeah, quite interesting. So in this day and night principle, we also find here in how people relate to each other. And I think we all have to admit, you know, I mean, now I'm talking to the devotees here in South Africa. So by the way, I'm at the moment in Simhachalam in Germany. I got stuck here during the Corona crisis, but it's a good place to be stuck. So I'm glad I can be here. And yeah, so, you know, we are all actually surrounded by pretty strongly materialistic culture, whether this is in South Africa or Germany or wherever it may be. Even India is becoming highly materialistic these days. So we have to admit that we are actually strongly conditioned by this materialistic propaganda and culture, you know, which we are surrounded by. And, you know, we tend to bring this materialistic conditioning into our spiritual practice. And very often our relationships are also, you know, more characterized with pushing each other out of the way and some competition, some envy there, stepping on each other's heads, and, you know, just looking for some gross or subtle gratification there and so on. So we, you know, if we're a little humble and honest, we have to detect these tendencies in our hearts and also in our communities, you know. And there is an interesting statement also in the Garuda Purana where it says, one cannot be liberated without the association of a pure devotee of the Lord. So we have heard this many times, but now it says, the second sentence, and unless one shows mercy to those in an inferior position, one's life will be superficial. Yes. Not only one's life, but one's relationships, actually. You know, as we said, unless there is this deeper aspect of reaching out to those in a junior position and actually trying to uplift and inspire them and guide them and share our knowledge and experience, and unless the juniors, you know, inquire from the seniors and try to learn from them, this is what makes a relationship deep and meaningful. But if this is not there, you know, then our life is superficial, and not only our life, our relationships. And we can actually truly say, you know, like for a materialist, as we said, the foundation to relationships is sense gratification. So now when we come to Krishna consciousness, we understand we don't want to have that foundation in our life, you know, so we realize, okay, you know, in Krishna conscious relationships, it's not all about, let's go to the movies and to the parties and to this and that. But no, we kick this out of our life. But the point is, we have to, you know, replace the foundation of sense gratification with the foundation of giving and accepting shelter. This is the crunch. You know, it's not enough just to kick out sense gratification from our relationships, but we have to put something else in its place. Otherwise, you know, the relationships have no foundation. There is a vacuum there. It's hollow, empty. So we have to replace the foundation of sense gratification with the foundation of giving shelter and accepting shelter. And yes, I mean, you know, on my travels, I can often observe this. You know, sometimes I'm coming to wonderful, you know, temples, and you think, wow, you know, this is amazing here, fantastic, you know. But then you realize what's going on. And I'm not saying this to criticize, I'm just trying to make the diagnose here. I'm coming originally from medical background, so my view is always, what's the diagnose, what's the treatment here, you know? I'm not satisfied with just describing the medicine, but we also have to make the diagnose and make sure we take the treatment. Yeah, so, and then I'm thinking, God, what's missing here? Something is missing, you know, and I observed the people just sitting in their rooms, coming out, doing their service, back into their rooms, close the door, you know, and the mood becomes often rather strange and almost a little weird, you know, and I'm thinking, God, what's lacking here, you know? And what's lacking is exactly this point, that we don't replace the foundation of sense gratification with this giving shelter to others and have a genuine concern about other devotees' well-being and progress in devotional life. And the juniors, you know, they also are not so eager to really take guidance and inquire, you know, and offer humble service to the seniors. And then the whole atmosphere becomes weird, you know. And so if this is not set as the foundation instead of the sense gratification, And I mean, sometimes I'm so bold to say, sometimes I like to make a few provocative points, just to shake everybody a bit up. Wake up, South Africa. So that's your motto here. So sometimes I like to say, actually, that often the non-devotees, they are nicer with each other than the devotees. Yes. So let us understand this. Well, the non-devotees are nice with each other because they know if I'm not nice to the other people, then I can't enjoy with them. So therefore, they're quite nice with each other. Otherwise they don't have, friends to have a good time and enjoy life. But we devotees, we don't really, we are not interested in enjoying with each other. So therefore, we are often not so nice with each other, Yeah, I have observed this, Yeah. So, and of course, saying this, I'm not saying that the non-devotees are so much nicer and better or something, but no, I just want to make this point that the materialists, they are motivated by the goal of sense gratification, and that makes them be nice with each other. And because we devotees don't have that goal, and if we are not replacing it with a deeper way of relating to each other, then we just ignore each other, and don't treat each other so nicely, Yes. Yeah, so and I also like to say another little humorous thing, a relationship where this giving shelter and accepting shelter is not the foundation, within Krishna consciousness. I like to call these relationships Hari-Bol relationships. Where we just say, Hari-Bol Prabhu, Hari-Bol Mataji, oh yes, nice to see you. How are you? Hari-Bol, yes, I'm running, I'm busy, I have to go in the kitchen. Oh, Hari-Bol, Hari-Bol, So we are just Hari-Bowling around, but the relationship doesn't go much deeper than that, just Hari-Bol, Of course, at least we say Hari-Bol, it's already something, but I mean, the relationships should become a little more deep and meaningful and not just Hari-Bol relationships, And I'm sure if we all look at our life, we can probably detect that we have a lot of Hari-Bol relationships in our life. But I mean, there should be at least one or two relationships in our life which go a little deeper than a Hari-Bol, where we are actually revealing our mind. We can ask for some guidance and so on, So maybe at this point, let me define a little bit more clearly what actually a sheltering relationship means. What are the characteristics of a sheltering relationship? So basically, like a mentor, a counselor, he should be for us, he should be like a senior confidential friend and well-wisher, who gives us inspiration. Yeah, he should be senior, then we can truly take shelter there and we can actually get some guidance. So he should be more senior, more experienced, and he should give inspiration. He should be a role model for us. He should have qualities which we feel we don't have yet, but we are eager to develop them, and where we think, or at least in these aspects, I want to become like that person, Maybe not in all aspects, maybe that person also most likely also maybe have some qualities, which we don't really want to develop, but at least, there should be something where we think, yes, I want to become like that, And this is actually a very important thing in order for us to move forward and not become stagnant. that we really strive, you know, for some qualities to develop. Of course, our guru, you know, he also has so many qualities which we want to develop. But then also, you know, for many of us, our guru is a little far away maybe, you know, and it's good to have somebody in between, you know, where we can build more on a day-to-day basis, a trusting and deeper confidential relationship. So, and yeah, sheltering relationship also means that the person actually has no other interest except helping us in our spiritual growth and development. No other interest. Completely selfless, you know, no financial interest, no emotional interest, even no managerial interest, actually. Yes. So devotee care actually means that we have to become more people-focused rather than always only project-focused. You know, I mean, these are big topics, but, you know, yeah, a little thought-provoking, you know. Yes, very easily we become only project-focused, and we forget that the project consists of personalities, and they have needs, you know, spiritual material needs and also material needs. And if we actually focus on the people's needs, on the devotees' needs, then our project will flourish automatically. You know, then people will dedicate their whole life. They feel so cared and nourished that they never ever want to leave that project. But if we are only project focused, then very easily, you know, we may not even notice the need of the individual devotees, and then easily they may feel burned out and they leave and go somewhere else, you know. Yes. So, yes, so a mentor, a sheltering relationship means that we can truly open our heart. We can share our innermost challenges and fears and struggles with that person. And we know this person will keep things confidential. He or she will not blabber everything around in the whole community, and whole South Africa will know what I am struggling with. Now, confidentiality is a really important thing, you know, really important, and not so easy for us in these modern days to keep things confidential and not post everything on Facebook and all this kind of thing, you know. So yes, confidentiality, very important thing. And also sheltering relationship means that we actually want to be corrected by this person. Yes. Vaisheshika Prabhu, you may know him, a pretty dynamic preacher in the United States. His motto is always, we live to be corrected. Yes. So, you know, to take shelter means that we want to hear from this person where we can improve, where we have to work on, you know, because, yeah, otherwise very easily we become stagnant, you know, and no matter how senior we may be, there's always something where we should be working on and improving and transforming ourselves. So therefore we need somebody who actually points this out to us and shares with us, you know. And if we don't like to accept correction, it actually means we have not really taken shelter yet, you know. So taking shelter means we want to be corrected by this person. And actually then correction becomes like a loving exchange, because we have so much trust and faith in this person. And we know this person has no other interest except helping us in our spiritual journey, you know, then we want to hear from this person. And only from this person, we allow this person to touch upon very sensitive points in our heart which we not so easily would allow just anybody to touch upon. But that person we allow because we know he's our dear, well-wishing, confidential friend. You know? So in that way, we can actually see correction as a loving exchange, a very intimate personal exchange, you know, that we allow a person to touch upon very sensitive issues, you know. Yes. Yeah, so another thing is, you know, that it's very obvious as we go through life, life is always full of new challenges, you know. Yes. So let us imagine a young fella enters the brahmachari ashram. Wow, new challenge, you know. So obviously we need some guidance here. So then after some years, he may decide to enter the grihastha ashram, get married. Okay, another new challenge. So then he may become a father. Oh, wow, another new challenge. So then the kids are teenagers. Oh my God, another new challenge. So then, you know, strictly speaking, after the grihastha ashram, there is another ashram, the banapasta ashram. So another new challenge. So in this way, life is full of challenges. And it only makes sense, it's a sign of intelligence, to inquire from those personalities who have already more experience meeting this very challenge than we have, right? We can actually save ourselves so many miseries and troubles if we would just take guidance, if we would be humble enough to inquire from those who have been through it already. But unfortunately, so often we don't do this, you know, and actually it's interesting to see people always repeat the same mistakes. Every generation repeats the same mistakes. So we could save ourselves all of that if we would just be humble enough to inquire, you know. But unfortunately, you know, our conditioning often is that we are a little proud. We think I can work it out all myself. I don't need anybody to stick their nose in my life and I know what I'm doing. So, and then very often we just make so many mistakes, you know, yes. So, and another thing is also that as long as we have material desires and attachments, we actually can't objectively assess ourselves. Our vision of ourselves is clouded, it's distorted, it's foggy, and we can't really see where we are standing actually. This is really like that, you know? So that's another reason why we need such an aloof Brahminical advisor. It's actually a very important aspect of Brahminical culture. That's what the Brahmanas, you know, that's their contribution, that the Brahmanas have no interest in power, title, position, this, that, you know, they just look that everything is going nicely. So everybody is reaching the ultimate goal of pure devotional service. You know, that's the Brahmanas. And I mean, as we know, like the Kshatriyas, they always had such a Chanakya Pandit, you know, such an aloof Brahminical advisor who was guiding them, the Kshatriyas, because Kshatriya, there's quite a bit of opulence coming along, attachment also, and so, you know, it's more the mode of passion there. So, you know, then in that state, one cannot actually objectively assess oneself. And one needs such a Chanakya Pandit who is aloof, detached, and who can see, you know, from his aloof position. So not only the Kshatriyas need such an aloof Brahminical advisor, but we all do, actually, you know, because that's the underlying principle that as long as we have material attachments and desires, and I think we all have them, you know, so we can't objectively assess ourselves. And a nice example from the Bhagavatam in this regard is, for example, Bharat Maharaj. He was on the level of bhava, you know, but actually his problem was that there in the forest, he didn't have a mentor. He didn't have a coach. He didn't have anybody to tap him on the shoulder and say, hang on now, you know, leave the deer alone. It's enough now. You know, just go back to your spiritual practice, you know. Yes, and this should really be a warning to us that even on the level of Baba, which is a very elevated level, you know, he experienced already transcendental emotions. But even on that level, these transcendental emotions can turn back into material attachments, you know. And this whole story with Bharat Maharaj and the deer, it started all in good intentions. He thought, oh, I have to give shelter to this poor deer and you know. So, but then he got so sucked in, as we say, you know, he got completely entangled emotionally. When you read it in the Bhagavatam, you think, my God, you know, how he slept with the deer at night on his chest and was embracing it. And oh my God, you know. So he completely got emotionally involved and attached. And he didn't have anybody next to him who could point this out. He couldn't see it, you know? Yes. So, I mean, this is a pretty good story of sheltering relationships. He was trying to give shelter, but he didn't have shelter himself, you know? Yes. And that's how he had to take one birth as a deer, you know? So even on a highly advanced levels, this principle is there, that we need such trusting and sheltering relationships. And actually just, yeah, maybe for your interest, I'm at the moment, you know, meanwhile, with a third Diksha Guru. I joined in Australia in 1985. So this was the zonal Acharya system at the time. I was disciple of Bhavananda Maharaj. Some of you may know him. He, you know, he's still around. He's in Mayapur a lot and gets involved there in the TOVP. So I was his disciple, but then he couldn't maintain his position as guru and sannyasi anymore. So then I took reinitiation of Papa Vishnu, former Swami in Peru. Same thing again. So and then I took one more time reinitiation of His Holiness Niranjana Swami. And I mean, by the way, all the three gurus were the perfect gurus at the certain time. So I have no hard feelings and bitterness or anything in my heart. It was all perfect, actually. My life would have gone completely different if I hadn't taken shelter of these personalities. So that's, you know, without saying. But I mean, all those personalities in ISKCON who could not maintain their position as guru and sannyasi, and we have quite a few, you know, they all had this thing in common. They did not have sheltering relationships with their peers and with those God brothers who are a little stronger than they are, you know. Yes. So I'm often lamenting, you know, and thinking how many more wonderful personalities do we have to lose before we realize this importance of sheltering relationships, you know. That just having a Diksha Guru is not enough. Many of our gurus have thousands of disciples. They cannot possibly know each and every disciple's personal situation in life. Not possible, you know. So we need counselors, we need mentors, we need a coach. Even in the material world, people know, you know, that if you want to become successful, you need a coach who is already more successful than you are. He can guide you. This is common knowledge in the professional world. You know, even a nurse has a coach, you know, who guides her, you know, or sports people or businessmen or whatever, you know. But yeah, somehow we devotees, it seems like we haven't really caught up on it so much yet, you know, that we also need a coach, you know, somebody who guides us, you know. And I want to share maybe as last quote, I mean, there's so much more I can say on this topic as I'm saying. Maybe at this point, I show you the book I put together here, Sheltering Relationships. You know, there I'm going into the whole thing in all details, what qualities we have to give shelter, what qualities we need to have to take shelter, what stops us the most of taking and giving shelter. That's envy. There's a whole chapter on envy, how envy manifests towards seniors equals juniors. Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, useful things in there, you know. But actually on the back of this book, I have put one quote, which I find really amazing. You know, this is from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, from the book Amrita Vani. You know, a very nice book where he puts like some sutras about all different topics together, you know, very powerful statements. So he says in this book, he says, one who gives personal instruction to each and everyone does more for others than the platform speakers do. So platform speaker is, yeah, a person who sits on a platform, on an asana or a stage and speaks, you know, lectures, basically, you know. So one who gives personal instruction to each and everyone does more for others than the platform speakers do. Generally, whatever platform speakers say cannot solve the problem of everyone in the audience, nor can it always benefit every individual. And now it comes, the key sentence. A person's defects are better rectified in a private tutorial class or private coaching than in hearing lectures in a school or a college. Therefore, those who instruct particular persons separately, they can award them something more permanent. Wow, you know. Bhaktisiddhanta makes it very clear, black and white, you know, that actually that person who gives personal instructions, which is a mentor, a coach, you know, he actually gives something more permanent. He actually gives more than just the lecturer does, you know, because people's defects, people's personal issues where they have to work on, they cannot be so easily corrected just in classes. You know, we need this one-to-one. We need this one-to-one, you know, yes. And I kind of feel we have not really fully understood this actually, you know. We usually measure, you know, the result of preaching, we always measure in numbers. How many people attended the program? You know, that's always the sign of success. The more the people, the more successful, you know. But here, Bhaktisiddhanta gives us another criteria. He says actually the one-to-one is actually more powerful, you know. There we can give something more permanent because we can help the person to see where they have to work on, you know, and where they have to transform their patterns of behaviors. Because just hearing lectures is, of course, very nice, but very easily we just walk out and we think, oh yeah, it was so nice and so sweet. But then we fall back into our ego-driven patterns of behaviors and we don't even realize, you know, how we try and show off and bring attention to each other, to ourselves, and you know, so many things. So just hearing lectures does not necessarily really help a person, you know, to work on their defects. So that requires the one-to-one, you know, and that's what sheltering relationships is all about, actually. You know,
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So sorry to disturb you. And on that note, just to remind the audience, it was on the chat that if anyone has a question
yes.
or a comment, you may raise your hand. You will be unmuted to ask it live if you're on live Facebook, or you can type it on the Zoom panel, and
Yes.
then Mataji will address that question.
Yes. So basically, with this quote, I wanted to conclude the session and give a few minutes. And I mean, if you are willing, if you want to stay longer for a discussion, I'm here to serve you. So I don't have to necessarily finish now in 8 minutes or something, but I leave that up to you. So do we have any questions? Is there anything? Yes. So there's Kamania Mataji and so Mataji Peru. Who do we start with?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Okay, Hare Krishna, we'll start with you.
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful class. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
So I have 3 questions actually.
Okay.
Should I just kind of like lay them all on you, or would you
No,
like
one by one. Otherwise, you know, by the time you're finished with the third one, I can't remember the first one. So start with question number 1, please.
Okay. So my first question would be, how do we deepen those Haribol relationships that you were talking about? Because they may have value, and there may be some value in nurturing and developing those relationships. So how do we deepen those?
Well, we deepen those by bringing in these elements of giving shelter and accepting shelter. You know, I mean, I tell you frankly, you know, and I'm not saying this to glorify myself or something, but I actually don't even have any other relationships in my life except giving shelter and accepting shelter. You know, especially as a preacher, this is all what you're interested in. I'm not interested in just small talk and talking about, you know, the weather or something, you know, but I'm interested in giving shelter, reaching out to those in a junior position, and having some genuine interest and concern for their spiritual development. And I'm always thinking, how can I serve devotees around me? You know, so, and you serve from whatever position you're in. So to those who are junior, you know, and less experienced, you serve as mudas. How can I inspire them? How can I encourage them? You know, what can I say to, to help them to move forward, you know? So, and those in an equal position, you know, you share, you open your mind, you build friendships on that platform of, you know, more deeply sharing, you know, and learning from each other and also serving each other. And those in the senior position, so there we offer humble service and we inquire from them, you know, because seniors carry a whole wealth of life experience, but they only will share that if they're actually asked. You know, sadhu only speaks if he is asked, you know, and if there's a person who is inquisitive and wants to hear, you know, and get some guidance, then sadhu is eager to share, you know. So these are the Vaishnava exchanges, you know. So of course we may not, you know, as Jiva Goswami says, there should be the same mood and taste there. So we may not have such relationships with just anybody and everybody, but at least a few people. We have to get on these deeper levels. And step number 1 is always hearing about it, you know, because very often we are not even aware of these things. You know, we think, this is how Vaishnavas relate to each other, just the more superficial small talk, Krishna conscious small talk, we can call it, you know. But no, there is also deeper levels, and it's based on giving shelter and accepting shelter, you know. So it's a matter of cultivation and desiring to have that in our life, you know, and then take some internal work to transform, you know, like that. So what's your next question?
So I think Neelachal Devidasi has asked that second question. So I only have two. My second question would be, how do we protect others from our own anathas, our own impurities in these relationships?
How do we protect others from our impurities? Well, I mean, you know, the principle is always when we associate with others, let's say those other people who associate with us, they have to be careful, you know, if a person has, you know, some strong anatas. So the principle is always we have to give our association rather than taking their association, you know, for example, in preaching, you know, when we go out in book distribution or something, we are meant to give our association to them and not take their association. Then we get contaminated, you know. So that same principle is also amongst devotees, you know, so we have to be careful that we are strong enough in our Krishna consciousness to give our good association and not allow ourselves to be affected by somebody's bad tendencies and anatas, you know. And when we notice, well, that person's, you know, shortcomings affects me too much, so then we may have to keep a little distance, you know, but always understanding it's actually my problem. I am not Krishna conscious enough to associate with this person closely, you know. So we make it our problem, not their problem, you know. So we have to be careful, you know, yes. And of course, yeah, we also have to be mindful that we don't infect, you know, others with our anatas, you know. So we have to be careful and introspective, you know. What else?
Sabyasachi Prabhu, you had a question?
You have to, yes.
Yes, you can give Mother Kamani a chance and Neelachal's question.
Hare Krishna, my question has been touched on, so I'm just thinking how to reformulate my question. Please, Prabhu, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I think everything has kind of been touched. My question would be, Mataji, thank you so much for the class. We live in a time when one of the Kali Yuga virtues is that we tend to want to feel a sense of equality with everyone. Just like, you know, even the lecturers at the university want the students to call them by their first name. And we see that people try to very quickly create a familiarity between each other. Even as preachers, very quickly we find people treating us like there's nothing further except friendship. So how do we switch that and move it to where we can shelter and give shelter without being seemingly being of bad Kali Yuga behavior yourself?
Yeah, this is actually a big topic. It goes to the topic of respect, that we have to clearly understand. Respect is the foundation to any more deeper relationship, actually. This is also one lesson I very strongly learned and observed in my time in Bangladesh. You know, how respectful people are to each other. So respect is the very foundation to spiritual practice and also to close and confidential and trusting relationships. So But in material life, you were talking about university and this and that, people don't have this understanding. People don't even understand what true respect is. And they mistake respect for formality and impersonalism. And they try to create intimacy by throwing the respect out of the window, right? That's what it boils down to. And that exactly creates over-familiarity, you know, that we take each other lightly and cheaply. And we easily use each other in a subtle way for sense gratification. So this is a big topic, you know, and also even between teachers and pupils at schools, this is going on, that this modern understanding for the teachers is that if we put ourselves on the level of the pupils and we are on their level, we are equal with them and we are all chummy with them, then we can affect them easier. But this is a misunderstanding. You know, in order to learn something from somebody, the person has to be superior and we have to have respect. You know, this is a whole Kali Yuga tendency, you know, yes, big topic, you know. So I guess at least in our Vaishnav communities and relationships, you know, we have to clearly understand that respect has to be the foundation. I mean, this is in all relationships, you know, also very strongly there in married life. You know, married life, you know, husband, wife, they're so close to each other, they very easily become over familiar and they treat each other like they would never ever treat anybody else. You know, but he's just my husband, she's just my wife, you know. So, and this over familiarity ruins any relationship. Also guru-disciple relationship, you know. That's why guru keeps us at a good distance. So we don't become over familiar, because this over familiarity destroys any relationship. So we as practicing devotees, we have to clearly understand that respect is the foundation to deep friendship. It's respect and not just getting rid of the respect. And, you know, the price for deep and meaningful relationships is respect. We have to pay that price, you know. But the non-devotees don't want to pay that price. They get rid of the respect, and in an artificial and cheap way, they try to create this intimacy, but it is actually only over familiarity, you know. Yeah, big topic.
We have more questions on the Zoom chat. So Nikala Devi has said, Hare Krishna, Mother Devaki. So lovely to hear from you again. How does one regain trust once trust has been broken in sheltering relationship?
I mean, first of all, you know, I understand your question in such a way that, yes, we were somehow disappointed in our attempts to take shelter. Our trust was broken. So how do we regain the trust? So first of all, we also have to understand the qualifications a person has to have in order to take shelter, you know? I mean, as I'm saying, I wrote a whole book about this. So that's a whole 2-hour session to discuss the qualities one has to have to give shelter, you know? And it's actually a very important topic, because that makes clear and that protects us from taking shelter of an unqualified person. You know, we have to know what to look for, what qualities the person has to have in order to be a shelter giver. And if we don't know that, you know, if we look for gold, we have to know what is the quality of gold. Otherwise we get cheated. We take the cheap, you know, junk jewelry there and we think that's gold or something. So we first of all have to know what qualifications a person has to have in order to give shelter, you know. And that also helps us to understand what qualities we have to develop so that one day we can become a shelter giver, you know. So I dare say that that is, you know, the foundation there to your problem, you know. If we take shelter of an unqualified person, then we may be, you know, disappointed and our trust may be broken, and we think, oh, you know, this is not a good idea to take a shelter of seniors or something. So we have to take shelter of a qualified person, you know. And I mean, even then, we may also be disappointed sometimes. Well, then we also have to understand, well, you know, we are all in the purifying process here. So even a qualified mentor or counselor, he is not perfect in all regards. He may also have some deficiencies. He can also make some mistakes, you know. So, and seeing Krishna in the picture is always the ultimate way how we still maintain our faith and trust, that we see Krishna in the picture and we understand, well, there must be some reason why Krishna puts me in this situation. You know, so even if a mentor maybe breaks our trust in some way, there is always a lesson for us to also learn. You know, it's like a Bhagavatam story. There's some purifying thing there for everybody involved. One can see things from so many angles. You know, so even if we find ourselves in a situation where our trust is broken, well, then we should ask ourselves, well, why is Krishna putting me in this situation? What is my lesson here, which I'm meant to learn? Maybe just forgiveness and compassion, you know, or maybe so many other lessons. So there's always some lesson for us also, and there's always some reason why certain things happen to us. But we have to have faith in Krishna, you know, that he has some good reason why this is happening to us, you know. And if we can connect our situation with Krishna being behind it, then that's actually what it means to be Krishna conscious, you know. And then we can also, you know, conquer over all different disappointments and broken trust or something, you know, when we can see Krishna in the picture. What else?
We have a comment and further questions on the chat. So Kamania Mataji has said that, in fact, respect as the foundation could be a class in and of itself. So maybe you can look into arranging that class maybe in the near future. And furthermore, Mandla Kaiso has asked, how do we protect new devotees who have left Bhakti and not want to return as a result of having negative interactions with other devotees?
Well, again, you know, that's why it is so important that also new devotees have a mentor, you know, a counselor, so that if they encounter some negative experiences, that they have somebody to go to, you know, because this does not only happen to new devotees, this is a very common thing in our ISKCON society, that, you know, people have some, devotees have some conflict, you know, some tension, some misunderstanding, one person gets offended, disappears, never to be seen again. This happens quite frequently, you know. And again, you know, if that person would have a mentor, a counselor, you know, who would be really concerned, where there is some confidential relationship, so then the counselor can catch that person, you know, and yeah, save him from being offended and walking out and fading away, you know. So this is not only for new devotees, this is for any devotee, you know, because this is very common, our thing, that we give so much attention to new people before they join, you know, but then as soon as they join, you know, then they're one of our people, and then we would demand and expect service, this, that, and we don't understand that, you know, such people, such devotees also need constant guidance and nourishment in order to really move forward and keep in the fire of devotional life. So yeah, mentorship solves the issue. And actually, one thing I want to express, that for community development, there's two main principles, how to develop a community. And I think this is what we should all be interested now worldwide in ISKCON. You know, we have so many temples and centers and this and that. So now comes community development. And there's two factors in community development. One of them is the deities have to be the center. You know, everybody in the community should focus on serving the deities and somehow be connected with the deities and do something little for the deities. But that's only one factor. The second factor is exactly this topic, sheltering relationships. You know, yes. Because if we don't have that, you know, then Krishna also says, oh yeah, you're doing all these nice things for me here, but what about my devotees? They are neglected. They are not taken care of. You know, the devotees are so dear to Krishna, more dear than his very life himself. You know, the devotees have conquered his heart. You know, so they're very dear to Krishna. So if we don't really make an effort to, you know, to have some genuine concern about each and every devotee's well-being and progress in spiritual life, you know, then Krishna will not be satisfied, you know. So, you know, these are the main two building blocks of community development. Deities have to be in the center and sheltering relationships. Then a community will thrive if these things are in place, you know. What else?
We also have a question in the chat from Guguletu Masang, and she says, Hare Krishna, thank you for the interesting class. I have observed devotees not easily giving of shelter and trying to form relationships with them. I see it as pride and the ego clouding their ability to learn from each other and cultivating devotee relationships. So I guess my question is, how can you keep serving a devotee even if it's not reciprocated or seen as you being weird for even trying to get close to them?
Well, I mean, it depends a little bit also on the individual situation, you know, that maybe there's also some reason from our part if people think we are weird, or, you know, maybe we're trying to really push things or something. So, you know, there is an etiquette and then a culture there, you know. So, I mean, Vaishnava etiquette and culture teaches us all these things, you know, how we should associate, you know. And I mean, yeah, it is a fact, you know, that pride is very often blocking us, you know, because we are proud, we think we know it all ourselves, and we don't even get the idea to ask for guidance and so on. So yeah, pride is often in our way, you know. So, but, you know, the whole process of Vaishnava practice is meant to subdue our pride and get rid of our false ego blocking our relationships. So if we just follow the etiquette, you know, that we do, you know, associate with seniors, equals, juniors, according to, you know, Krishna's recommendation, you know, then gradually the relationships will develop. And I mean, also let us remember, you know, we can't just always point the finger at others and blame others, you know, but we have to look within ourselves, and we can't change others. We can only change ourselves, and others, they serve like a mirror to ourselves. They reflect our behavior, you know. So if other people behave in an, you know, unwanted way towards us, then we should ask ourselves, what am I doing wrong that people behave like this to me? What can I change in myself, you know? And then we have the best possible change there, that actually something develops in the relationship, not just blaming the others. Yeah, they are proud and they think I'm weird and they think this and that. But no, we have to look within ourselves, you know, what am I doing wrong? How can I change my behavior, you know? How can I be more genuinely humble and actually serve devotees and so on, you know? So we have to look within ourselves, you know. Yes.
Thank you, Mataji. I hope that answers your question, Kukuletu. One last question that we have from the chat from Nomsa. Hare Krishna, Mother Devaki. Thank you for such an enriching class. Where can we get hold of your book here in South Africa?
Well, talking about the books, I actually have put together 3 books. Maybe I should show them quickly. You know, as we said, children relationships, that's all about this topic. Then we have another one, The False Ego, Our Constant Companion and Troublemaker. Title speaks for itself. I can only say it has helped me a lot to detect how my false ego is always in my way, pushing me to say and do things which I shouldn't say and do. So when I put this book together, it helped me a lot. So in that hope, yeah, I have that it also may help the readers. There's a lot of practical stuff in it, you know, even when we get offended, when we can't forgive, all these things are connected with the false ego. And there's a whole chapter on chanting the holy name, because that is one of the main aspects how to dissolve the ego, is actually the chanting. But also parallel with Vaishnava etiquette and culture, the two go together. And then the last one is Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. Highly transformational, thought-provoking. It mainly targets the whole gender topic. And it clearly gives insights, you know, how men, women, they have very different natures, very different qualities, because they're meant to play different roles according to Krishna's recommendation. And we realize that really all our social problems, like divorce, violence towards women, you know, child abuse, all these things, they're all global reactions for not following Krishna's system, you know, because we think our modern system is better than Krishna's system. That's what we often think. And all the books are completely based on the Bhagavatam, you know, completely, mainly Bhagavatam and also Prabhupada's classes and whatever, you know. So, and now I'm just working on the 4th one, and I'm almost got it ready to get it printed. That's about entering the Grihastha Ashram, how to enter, how not to enter. Already there, we make so many mistakes. Oh my God, you know, yeah. So anyway, I mean, if you want to get some books, these 3 books you can get on Amazon in the soft copy, you know, but not the hard copy, not the actual book. So if you just want the soft copy, you can go to Amazon and you can get it there. But if you want the proper book, then best would be like in America, they made some collective orders and I sent them, you know. So you have to see, ask around in your community or something if somebody wants one or 2 or 3, whatever. And you just contact me. My email is devaki@pamho.net. Very simple, just devaki@pamho. So you can just contact me and then we can see. Naturally, the more books I send, the cheaper it gets per book, the sending, you know. So if I only send 1 or something, you know, it becomes a little more expensive, you know, like that.
Oh. Thank you, Mataji. I see that Kamania has her hand raised up. Would you please be unmuted and she can ask a question or comment?
Hare Krishna, Devaki Mataji. Pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your time and your deep wisdom. I also have a question regarding trust, which you have in some ways answered, but perhaps you'd be inspired to go a little deeper into it. How do we, as devotees, develop trust in each other, especially when serving together in a project or community? You mentioned tolerance and forgiveness, but the conditioning and the trauma that we bring with us into Krishna consciousness can cause us to have walls that we've built around us that we hesitate to let down, even with devotees. And this impedes the deepening of our relationship and our service together.
Yeah, I mean, this is again a big topic. You know, basically in general, I can say that you mentioned traumas we bring along and so on. So I mean, the whole process of devotional service actually completely targets the subtle body of mind, intelligence, force, ego. It's meant to transform and spiritualize the subtle body. Otherwise, we can't go back to Godhead, you know. If the subtle body is still materially based, then the subtle body at the moment of death will take us to the next gross body. So subtle body has to be transformed. And that's exactly what Krishna consciousness is all about. You know, so many kind of, you know, traumas and a lot of luggage we bring into Krishna consciousness by time going by actually gets dissolved and cleared up, you know. But then some things don't get dissolved, you know. So if we actually carry such heavy traumas, and I do know quite a few devotees, you know, because as you say yourself, we often come from very dysfunctional backgrounds and abusive backgrounds and so on. And if the traumas are, you know, rather deep and strong, then we may additionally actually need even some professional help to, you know, work on them, you know. Yes, because as you said yourself, this can really create so many disturbances in our relationships, you know. So if we have really deeper, major trust issues based on, you know, previous experiences and traumatic situations in our life, then we may need a bit of additional professional help with this, you know. And there's even also devotees who know how to help us, you know. But ultimately we can say, again, this trust in Krishna is actually the main thing, which helps us to deal with all different issues, you know. If we really have faith, unflinching faith in Krishna, you know, because also the humble Vaishnav mood is that we say, actually, I deserve so much worse than this. But Krishna is so kind. He only gives me one drop of what I really deserve. You know, that is actually the humble Vaishnav attitude. So with that attitude, we will not take offense, and we will not, you know, be, you know, too disappointed or destroyed or something, you know, because we understand actually, you know, we have the laws of karma here. So they're also, you know, from our point of view, we should have that humble mood to say, well, obviously there's some reason why these things happen to me. I must have done something much worse, maybe to that same person or to other people in previous lives, you know, so therefore, you know, I'm getting it back now, you know. So it is a question of faith in Krishna, you know. If we have unflinching faith in Krishna, then, you know, we don't need all these words around us, even if, you know, some people maybe take advantage of us in wrong ways and this and that, you know. But yeah, but then again, as I was saying, to actually really open our hearts on deeper levels, we have to do that to a qualified person, you know. Yes. I mean, that I'm all describing in this book, you know, this, I mean, see, I'm simply here to serve. So if you have more interest in this topic, we can turn this more deeply in the future in other sessions or something, you know. This is just an introductory thing, you know. And I mean, also there is recordings of the courses, you know. I do have some on my website or on YouTube there and so on, you know. It's all out there somewhere on the internet, you know. So, but I mean, yeah, just to listen to recordings at home is often not so effective, and people often don't listen attentively. They listen while they do other things, and then they miss a lot of things and so on, you know. Yeah,
Thank
so.
you. On that note, actually very helpful from Kamania Mataji. She has said that devotees can actually subscribe through Devaki Mataji's email to receive letters through their mailbox. Mataji's email address will be given shortly in the announcements, but for now, it is at devaki@palmho.net. Also, furthermore, Kamania Mataji has also shared the YouTube link to Devaki Mataji's YouTube page for more videos and more content on that channel. And WuSA admin is begging you, Mataji, for more classes and more in-depth sessions such as this one. And I think we'll take Khosi Prabhu as the last question for time's sake. So Khosi Prabhu, you may unmute yourself and ask the very last question to Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, humble excellencies. My question was because there was a lot of emphasis on, I guess, the principal devotee, the one who's more advanced. I'd also just like to ask about us who are, you know, still young and still early into the movement. How should we behave towards those who were seeking shelter towards? Like, for example, one of the people that we speak to a lot is Savya Sachitas. So how should we participate with him in our relationship and also avoid that trying to get too familiar with him? Because obviously, I mean, the Krishna conscious topic is very nice. We can love, you know, there's a lot of things that we do. We dance, play music, we eat with one another. So sometimes those lines can be blurred. So just trying to understand what mood should we have when approaching an advanced devotee in terms of trying to become more Krishna conscious. And also, even if, let's say, we get something which is not pleasing, advice which is not pleasing for us, maybe it's a bit, you know, painful, how should we take that advice so that we can continue to move on and take it as, no, he's seeing something that's, you know, maybe that's not good for us, and we should correct that and then move forward, you know, because it's the best thing for us. Thank you, Mataji.
So if I understood correctly, you're basically asking how to relate to seniors, right?
Yes.
How do we associate with those in a superior position? So we have it in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi Panipadina Pariprashnena Sevaya. So this is not only in relationship to Guru, but actually in relationship to any more experienced devotee. Pariprashnena Sevaya. So Pariprashna means to inquire, and Sevaya to offer humble service. So that should be the main mood in associating with seniors, that we are eager to serve, you know, depending, you know, either personal service or simply helping the person in their service, you know. To accept personal service, one has to be quite advanced in order not to allow it to get that in our head or something. But to assist the person in their service, you know, so we should be eager to serve, and we should inquire. We should take every opportunity to ask meaningful questions and take, you know, get the benefit from a senior person's experience and wisdom, you know. So that's in the nutshell the way how we associate, by serving and by inquiring. So, and then also it is actually up to the senior person to, how to say, to kind of manage the relationship and not to allow the person to come too close. It's actually up to the senior person. He is meant to, set the boundaries. And often a senior person, we may also not understand the importance of keeping a respectful distance, So it's a fine line between, as a senior person, we have to give instruction and also a little discipline, but at the same time, there should also be this genuine care and concern there for the person's spiritual and material well-being. And so there is the mood of friendship there, but as I was mentioning, it has to be based on respect. Yes. And I mean, that starts already with little rules of Vaishnav etiquette, that we don't just call the person by name, but we always add Prabhu, So even these little things, they help us to cultivate respect. I mean, I've never visited the South African community, so I don't know how you address each other and how, how much you follow these etiquette things, But I mean, I've learned all these things in Bangladesh, there we have hundreds of brahmacharis, and there's, and they're very close and affectionate with each other, but at the same time, they're very respectful. They never call each other by name. It's always Prabhu, such and such Prabhu, 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 and paying obeisances and all these things. So that helps us to not become over familiar and so on, Yes. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Okay. Anything else?
No, there's nothing else. We just really love to extend our most genuine and sincere thanks to you, Mataji. Thank you so very much.